Tauka and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top hat Cho Hyun ahead of a presidential summit. Official statements from China's Taiwan Affairs Office. Beijing has condemned Taiwan's leader William Lai's New Year's Day speech as full of lies and malice after he vowed to strengthen Taiwan's defense just days after PLA live fire drills around the island. According to the Israeli military, Israeli forces have killed a 26-year-old Palestinian identified as Khattab al-Sarhan during an early morning operation in the occupied West Bank, after opening fire on people accused of throwing stones at the soldiers. A member of Iran's security forces was killed during protests that have swept across the country since last week, local media has reported. The United States has carried out strikes against 3 vessels in international waters that were suspected of narco trafficking, according to the U.S. Southern Command. The vessels were traveling as a convoy. Chinese rocket maker Landspace is seeking to raise about $1 billion in Shanghai Star Market IPO after its listing application was fast-tracked and accepted by the Shanghai Stock Exchange. Landspace's IPO comes as Beijing pushes aerospace as a strategic priority. Now for this hour, we start with Europe. Russia has accused Ukraine of killing over 20 people, including a child, in a drone strike on a hotel and a cafe where civilians were celebrating the New Year in a Russian-controlled part of Ukraine's southern Kherson region. Vladimir Saldo, the Russian-installed governor of the region, first made the accusation about the strike in a statement. Later on, Russia's foreign ministry and senior Russian politicians also accused Ukraine of carrying out this attack. Kherson is one of 4 regions in Ukraine which Russia claimed as its own since 2022, a move Kyiv and most Western countries condemned as illegal land grab. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Mohammad Osman. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Mr. Osman, for joining us once again, and Happy New Year to you. Now looking at this...
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Now looking at this, as we know, although it's New Year's, the Russia and Ukraine battle is intensifying. What do you think, how is this escalation by Russia and also counterattacks by Ukraine is going to be shaping the upcoming talks for peace, which is supposed to include U.S.?
Of course, again, Happy New Year to you, Asuma, and to the rest of the team. And unfortunately, war observes no New Year's or any feasts or occasions of any kind. The war in Ukraine is continuing, and the death of civilians is definitely nothing new in this very tragic conflict. According to the United Nations, about 13,000 to 14,000 civilians have died since the beginning of this war. And even though the vast majority of the fatalities in this war are military personnel, soldiers from both sides, however, as we have just seen with these figures, there are staggering civilian casualties as well, exceeding 14,000 people. So what happened yesterday in Kherson, this drone attack on a cafe, basically rhymes with this trend and is nothing new. However, what is very dangerous about this development is that definitely Russia will use it in order to prolong the conflict. We have seen when Volodymyr Zelensky was visiting Mar-a-Lago and meeting with President Trump for this very important summit in order to reach a conclusive agreement on the framework for a peaceful settlement in Ukraine. And even the US and Ukraine announced that they have agreed on over 90% of what the peace treaty should look like. Suddenly, Russia announces that there's an assassination attempt of President Putin. They have not provided so far very, very strong, undeniable evidence that would support that. However, there are indications that a drone attack did happen in Novograd, and Russia said that this is a huge escalation, and now it will have to review its negotiating position, and is promising a very severe retaliation against Ukraine militarily. Some even fear that the retaliation might entail the targeting of Ukrainian leadership and Ukrainian governing institutions in Kiev, for example. So basically, this complicates the peace efforts, and of course, the drone attack that kills about 2 dozen civilians definitely doesn't help, and it will harden Russia's, especially of course in the Kherson region. Most of the residents are of Russian culture, and they support Russia. Most of them voted in these referendums to join Russia when Russia organized referendums in Kherson, Zaporozhye, Donetsk, and Lugansk back in the fall of 2022. So now it seems that this will harden Russia's position. Russia will see this as an attack on Russian civilians from its own viewpoint, and it will only escalate its war from there. And Russia is, as I said several times on your broadcast, Asuma, Russia has no interest at the moment in a quick settlement of this war. They are achieving huge battlefield successes. They have the initiative, and they are advancing and capturing more towns and more territories by the day. So they're not really interested in engaging haphazardly or agreeing haphazardly to a peace agreement mediated by the US.
Thank you for highlighting that. And Mr. Osman, now in case, like you mentioned, Russia is not interested in ending the war right now as they are advancing on front lines. If the next talks between US, Russia, and Ukraine don't come with a breakthrough once again, do you think how do you think Trump would act? Do you think Trump is already frustrated for the fact that there is no breakthrough ever since he took office?
Yes, he is frustrated, of course, since he promised during his election campaign hundreds of times that he would end the Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours. Now a year has passed since President Trump's inauguration, almost a year save 20 days, and still he did not achieve any breakthrough, and the war is actually escalating, and now it's even threatening to spill over into the European continent, which will have a disastrous consequences on global peace and security, and will definitely jeopardize US interests, security interests as well. So that's why the US is very frustrated at this point. President Trump is very frustrated. It seems now he's trying to apply more pressure on the Ukrainians again. However, at some point when he sees that the Russians are not being serious about the negotiations, he might revert to imposing sanctions on the Russians or imposing more tariffs. However, he will not go as far, in my opinion, as to restore huge arms shipments to Ukraine, because this is a very unpopular measure domestically. Most of the U.S. public oppose sending arms to Ukraine. Most of the U.S. public has grown war weary and tired of supporting Ukraine, and the MAGA base of President Trump opposes this, and he ran on a platform that promised not to give any Ukraine or Europe anything for free again. So the top he can do, in my opinion, is maybe impose some sanctions and impose some tariffs, hoping that the Russians would budge. In my opinion, the Russians won't. The Russians will stop only if the Ukrainians agree in an agreement to give up the entirety of the Donbass and agree to neutrality and to downsize their armed forces.
Thank you very much, Mr. Osman, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving the focus to Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo has accused Rwanda of being responsible for the deaths of more than 1,500 civilians in the country's conflict-hit east since early December. The allegation follows a renewed offensive by the M23 rebel group, which Kinshasa says is backed by Kigali. According to a government statement, the civilian death toll has been linked to what were described as Rwandan military operations involving bombs and kamikaze drones. The statement said the casualties had been recorded since the beginning of December. The escalation came just days after Congo and Rwanda signed a U.S.-brokered peace agreement aimed at easing tensions and ending years of fighting in the region. Despite the deal, the M23 advance continued, with the group capturing the strategic city of Uvira. The fighting triggered a major humanitarian fallout, forcing tens of thousands of civilians to flee their homes. Many crossed the border into neighboring Burundi in search of safety, according to regional authorities. Rwanda has previously denied supporting the M23, while calls for restraint and renewed dialogue have been issued by international partners. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Mr. Mohammed Osman. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Mr. Osman, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, this has been continuing regardless of U.S. mediation efforts. What does this continued M23 advance suggest about effectiveness of the diplomatic agreements last year? And is there a limit of international mediation by U.S. in this continuing situation?
I think the Congo is increasingly becoming another foreign policy blunder for the current U.S. administration. The President Trump, when he came back to office, he gloated about brokering a peace agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo with regards to the North Kivu conflict. And indeed, Rwanda, which never, by the way, admitted that it sent troops into the Congo to fight on the side of the rebels, even though there is definitive evidence that there are Rwandan troops still inside parts of North Kivu fighting on the side of the rebels who are advancing and still are advancing. So Rwanda and the Congo signed a peace agreement to end the war, yet the rebels never ended the war. Even though they supposedly agreed to a ceasefire through Qatari mediation with the Congolese government, the rebels did not abide by the provisions of the agreement, and the war is still going on until now, even though the Congolese President Tshisekedi and President Kagame of Rwanda went to the United States and with President Trump, and they signed a peace agreement. So it seems that this is basically an optics stunt for President Trump to polish his record as a peacemaker. However, on the ground, the war is still progressing and is causing a dire humanitarian disaster in this country. The Congo is a country that has been struck by one of the worst civil wars in African history, the Second Congolese Civil War back in the 1990s, and it went on until the early 2000s, and it caused the deaths of millions of people. The North Kivu conflict is one of those follow-up conflicts that is connected to the civil war and is threatening to tear the country apart and cause another massive civil war in this country. And Rwanda apparently is playing a very destabilizing role in that, because they have expansionist ambitions in the resource-rich North Kivu region, and they do believe that they are entitled to take advantage of these resources, and they also believe that the people, or at least certain segments of the population of North Kivu, are of the Tutsi ethnic group, so they believe that they are the protectors, or that they naturally belong to Rwanda, and Rwanda is led by a president from the Tutsi minority in the country. So it's a very complex situation, and the United States, instead of dealing with this responsibly by attempting to address the root causes of the conflict and trying to actually reach a sustainable settlement, President Trump would only opt for optics and cameras and press conferences, and claiming to have accomplished the greatest peace deal in the history of Mother Earth, but yet on the ground everything unravels, and it turns out to be just a farce as usual, Asuma.
Yes. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Mohammed Osman for joining us from Cairo and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news, to Europe. A deadly fire had torn through a New Year's Eve party at a bar in the Swiss ski resort of Crans-Montana, leaving several dozen people presumed dead and around 100 others injured, according to the local police. Let's listen in.
À l'heure où je vous parle, tous les blessés ont pu être pris en charge. Nous dénombrons une centaine de blessés, la plupart grièvement, et malheureusement plusieurs dizaines de personnes sont.
The blaze broke out at around 1:30 a.m. local time at Le Constellation, a popular bar known for hosting large celebrations. Many of the injured suffered severe burns, and local hospitals say intensive care units are full now. Authorities have ruled out terrorism, stressing the incident is being treated as a fire while investigators work to determine the cause. Witnesses told officials the fire may have started when a birthday candle placed on a champagne bottle ignited the ceiling, though this has not been verified yet. The area around the bar remains closed to the public with a no-fly zone in place as forensic teams examine the scene. More than 150 medical personnel, along with helicopters and ambulances, were deployed overnight to assist the victims. Crans-Montana had banned fireworks ahead of New Year's celebrations due to extreme fire risk following weeks without rainfall, though it is unclear whether that played any role. Victims are believed to be from multiple countries. French President Emmanuel Macron and Swiss President Guy Parmelin has both expressed condolences, calling the tragedy a devastating loss. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Shyam Batra. He's a British politician and political commentator, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mr. Batra, for joining us, and Happy New Year to you. Now,
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Now looking at this, what more can you tell us, and what role should government regulations play in ensuring safety at such public places?
Well, you're quite right. Thank you for having me today. Happy New Year. It's happened on the first day of 2026. It's the night of the 26th. I mean, this is quite a famous resort, a Swiss ski resort. And normally I would have thought that during a New Year's Eve party they would have had special things in place, because obviously what's going on in the world right now, we don't have a clue what's really happening with lots of things going on, but it could be related to other incidents. But they are clearly saying at the moment that there was a fire and explosion there. I actually saw this early hours of the morning in social media. I was still awake till about 3, and I was quite shocked. But we don't know whether it is terrorism, but it has been so far ruled out. There's over 100 casualties already. And we, as far as I've seen so far, we don't know the full capacity of how many people have passed, but they're saying there's around 40 people. We don't know, it could be more. But in situations like this and parties like this in resorts such as this, there should have been far more security. It could have been just a fire that happened, but an explosion is another story. So I mean, my hearts go out to the families, etc. But it is quite a sad, devastating start to the year in something like this. I mean, let's hope that it is not terrorism, but if it is, then it's another story. And Switzerland is normally quite independent from everybody, you know. The area, Crans, Montana, is quite a beautiful area. I mean, there's, you know, the places have been there for years. This particular bar has been going for a long, long time. And so many people just frequent there during the New Year's break. But in terms of security, what can you assume? You know, you don't know that something like this is going to happen.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for joining us once again, Mr. Shyam Batra, and sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move the focus on to China. China's leading private rocket company, Landspace, is planning to raise 7.5 billion yuan, which is about $1.07 billion, through a potential IPO. The funds will help boost its production and technology for reusable rockets. The Shanghai Stock Exchange has approved Landspace's application to list on its star market focused on tech companies. This comes after Landspace made history earlier this last month, as the first Chinese company to test a reusable rocket, positioning itself to rival SpaceX. Last week, the Shanghai Exchange eased IPO rules for companies like Landspace as part of China's strategy to catch up with the US in space technology. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Ram Srivastawa. He's a former space scientist of ISRO. Thank you very much, Mr. Ram, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Now, looking at this, how significant is the fact that China just eased their IPO application just to include some space-related companies to be able to have run for IPO to help get funds, and how significant is this Landspace's application being listed?
This is very important event because the day is now there that every country will have to switch over to the private organization in enhancing the development in space era. The reason here is in the space, out of our atmosphere, there are more than 8,000 debris of different rockets which were used in the last 4 or 5 decades, and they are now gradually losing their orbit, and they will be crushed in the upper atmosphere. They will burn, and some of the pieces of them will fall over the earth. Because this is going to be a metallic burning, so it is also destroying the upper layer, and more ultraviolet rays will come, ozone layer will be disturbed, and this is going to be very dangerous. Another point is the debris are so much, it is practically jamming the upper atmosphere and above it, so that any rocket, any satellite which is to be launched will have to save itself from the collision of such dead satellites and their remittents of these rockets. So now the time has come which the SpaceX is advancing in this field, and they have made it perfect technology to launch any satellite with a rocket, and then that rocket is reusable. It is coming and falling exactly at the point where it was launched. So the same thing is now China is now developing. Gradually, India will have to will be required to develop such technology, and this is a good experiment that private company in China is floating its share in the share market, and they are now collecting nearly $1 billion from the public funds, and this is a good change, and I am sure this will create much more better advancement in the field of space science.
And thank you for sharing that. And Mr. Ram, where does China's space industry lie currently? What's your analysis if you compare it to US's space industry?
Look here, the China is moving very fast, undoubtedly. And China has taken lesson from the USA that the day the SpaceX has come into the existence, it has captured practically all over the world the internet market. They are launching small satellites, and they are reaching to each and every part of the earth. Now, the same thing, if China is moving, India will have to move in this direction. Russia, what they are doing, we don't know exactly, but Russia is not utilizing the reusable rocket pattern. India is now trying to develop this with the help of the private organization, and there are a number of private organizations working in India, and this is going to be a new milestone in the field of space science.
With that, I would like to thank Mr. Ram Srivastawa for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to sports news. Chelsea and head coach Enzo Maresca have parted company with the club, saying the move gives the team the best chance to get the season back on track. The Italian exits after 18 months in charge with Chelsea, 5th in the Premier League and just 1 win from their last 7 games. Meanwhile, the split follows reported tensions behind the scenes. Maresca won the Conference League and Club World Cup and secured Champions League qualification last season. Chelsea will be facing Manchester City next, with Liam Rossinier emerging as a leading replacement. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.